Hey folks, how's it going? My name's Jaxsun. Today we're going to go through a rundown of some of the changes with Holy Paladins going into 9.15. Now, overall, Holy has been split pretty much down the middle in terms of Mythic Plus. You've seen a lot of Paladins go Kyrian, certainly like in the world of Protection Paladins and Rep Paladins, over 70% of the time we're seeing Paladins go that way. Holy's not quite that high. They're around 50% of the time you'll see a Kyrian Holy Paladin, and that's just because of the competition. So about another 50% of the time, or 49.5, according to our friends over at Wowhead, we're seeing that Venthyr is basically splitting the vote between Kyrian, and that's certainly tied to Ashen Hollow and having the ability to just have your group burn down the competition. Necrolord, Night Fae not getting any love whatsoever. Blizz is going to try to correct that with some of the Covenant changes coming in 9.15, and we're going to touch on that right away here. So what we are seeing is that Necrolord's going to get two pretty solid buffs. Vanquisher's Hammer is like a Necrolord, your Necrolord ability. If you don't know that, it's because none of you are playing Necrolord, so understandable. Basically, it's going to increase the effectiveness of free holy power spenders by 25%. Now, this is the case across prots, rets, and holy. Ultimately, that maybe that's a healthy boost for Necrolord throughput for us, but it's not going to be enough to change us from the meta, whether it's Kyrian or Venthyr, depending on whatever the talent is or the content is that you're trying to play. Blizz additionally tried to go buff a conduit in the Necrolord side called Righteous Might, and basically increased its healing effect, or had the healing effect reduced by 50% after increasing the damage effect that it provided by 400%. Basically, if you bring this all the way up to eye level 252, the conduit goes from buffing Vanquisher's Hammer by 36% to 180%. So pretty massive boost. Still doesn't compete with Ashen Hollow, however. So you'll probably see some people play around with this a little bit more, but Ashen's still likely the way to go from a pure throughput perspective. On the Night Fae side, Blizz wasn't going to neglect them. Basically, Blessing of Spring had its healing, increases your healing done by 15%. Previously it was only 10%. And your healing received by 30%, which may be a little attractive if you're taking a lot of damage, or maybe you're a tank. Blessing of Winter reduces the hostile target's attack speed and movement speed by 5% per stack, which used to only be 3% per stack. So a little attractive increase there as well. Overall, its damage has been increased by 40% with the Blessing of Winter. So that's not terrible whatsoever. Blessing of Seasons, there's definitely a bit of a feast and famine part of the design of this Covenant ability. So kind of buffing up the two of them makes it a little bit more attractive. It's not going to upset, I think, the Kyrian Venthyr split. Like, the meta is still going to be what it is. But it's good to see some of these changes come into play. Now, what everyone's been waiting for. Show me the talents. Alright, here we go. So right off the hop, Tier 1, you want to go with Light's Hammer. Just basically being able to crank out damage, which is what Holy Pals are all about, and increase a little bit of healing. Makes everyone happy. Tier 2, Judgment of Light. Really mana efficient heal. Outperforms all the other talents on this row. Blinding Light is what I'm consciously trying to incorporate more often. I usually like to go with Fist of Justice and get as many Hammers of Justice off as often as possible, but Blinding Light offers you the ability to stun targets that otherwise, dazzle or phase targets that otherwise wouldn't be able to be interrupted. That's really the fun part of them, when you can interrupt AoE packs. There's only a few classes in the game with that capability. Tier 4, you've got a few ways to play here. Cavalier improves mobility. Always useful as long as kiting will be the meta. And then finally, Rule of Law. That's helpful to have a second Beacon of Virtue. Tier 5, Divine Purpose is really just a very complimentary way to proceed. It's attractive basically from an all-around perspective. Boost your damage, boost your healing, procs basically Shield of the Righteous, which is uncapped from an AoE damage perspective, so think about what that would feel like. If you're lining it up appropriately with Avenging Wrath, you can make some real solid burst damage from an AoE perspective, which, yeah, that's what Holy Palace all about. Tier 6 Awakening is the preferred go with. It's just... people like to try to incorporate Sanctified Wrath because everyone likes to have wings up longer, but the throughput from Awakening, like this is where you get a ton of easy heals. And then finally, down in Tier 7, you've got a couple ways you can go. You can go with the Glimmer build. That's kind of underwhelming if you were familiar with it in Battle for Azeroth. Like the Glimmer build was so much fun. Really what we're going with now, you've got a few ways you can roll. I like to go with Beacon of Faith. Just make life easier and keep whoever's in your tight melee all topped up from a heals perspective. Alternatively, you can look at Beacon of Virtue. It really allows for pretty significant group-wide burst healing, which isn't something we're tremendously known for. You just have to make sure you're lining it up with Divine Toll. That's the quick and the dirty on Holy Pals, folks. Overall, yeah, it's still going to be a bunch of fun. I'm excited for where the class goes next. I'm excited for being able to just swap from class to class and be able to be Venthyr 1 week and then the next day pull it back to Kyrian and be able to transition basically between a holy, a ret, a prot, whenever I want. So it's going to be a ton of fun. That's all I've got, folks. Thanks for checking out the vid. Drop comments. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, and I'll talk to you all soon. Later.